Late September, the US Department of Commerce hit Bombardier, Canada's major aircraft maker, with a nearly 220% tariff on its new line of planes, which was later hiked another 80%. The amount? Totally absurd. But the hit? It's just another in a long line of disputes over how the aircraft manufacturing industry handles government funding. This totally exorbitant tax came about because of Boeing, a US manufacturer. Boeing filed a complaint over Bombardier's new line of CSeries jets. The Montreal-based company has a deal to sell up to 125 of these jets to Delta Airlines, again, a US company. Boeing is basically pointing fingers and claiming that Bombardier sold the planes well below market value, something it was able to do thanks to what Boeing is calling unfair subsidies from Canadian governments. And the US Department of Commerce agreed, hence the hefty tax. Although Bombardier is Canada's major aerospace manufacturer, Boeing earns 8 times as much on aircraft sales. In the grand scheme of things, Bombardier is no match. So why pick on the little guy? Realistically, the CSeries jets are good. They're spacious, fuel efficient, environmentally friendly, and they've got Boeing scared. Boeing's already had to reluctantly share the US market with Europe's Airbus, and they do not want to give up another piece of it. But of course, a company can't just say that. Government subsidies have been put at the center of this whole spat, so let's break those down. Now, on the one hand, you could look at Boeing as the pot to our kettle in this situation. Every major aircraft manufacturer receives some form of government support, including Boeing. This support could be through a lot of avenues: military contracts, grants, interest-free loans. According to Good Jobs First, Boeing has received about $14.4 billion US dollars in subsidies to date, not to mention $73.7 billion US dollars in government-assisted loans. In dollar amounts, Bombardier's support is a fraction of what Boeing rakes in. What Boeing is taking issue with are the kinds of subsidies Bombardier has. In 2016, the Quebec government gave Bombardier $1 billion US to support the creation of its floundering CSeries program. But the province didn't just give it funding like it would give a subsidy. Quebec made a partnership with Bombardier. In exchange, the province took an almost 50% stake in the CSeries. On the one hand, it makes sense that Quebec wants to support one of its province's biggest industries. But analysts point out that a government involving itself in commercial business is pretty murky water. Not to mention, it's a sly move for Bombardier, since that support at such an early stage for that program eliminates a lot of risk. That's the issue Boeing and the US have. But to be honest, some Canadians aren't thrilled with Bombardier's constant government bailouts either. There have been plenty of opinion pieces and grumblings about it, even satire suggesting Sears consider a name change. Since 1966, Bombardier has received $5 billion from the federal and Quebec governments. Yet despite the taxpayer funding, Bombardier has still carried out massive layoffs, seen projects delayed, and given executives cushy bonuses, which the company only cut back after a public backlash. You can see why folks would be torn on the government pumping so much cash into the company. If anything, decades of feuding over aerospace subsidies should be an indicator that taxpayer money and airplanes are a toxic mix.